again, everyone. I can see we have a relatively full house. We're almost 60. Wow, amazing. So thank you so much. And thank you again, Mr. Simon. Thank you. An amazing facilitation with Mr. Simon telling us about the P1 business opportunity. And I am a very proud benefactor of this system that Mr. Simon was explaining about. Everything he said is true. Many of those things he said I have earned life. So I'm a life testifier or a live example. Those are not just figures, they're not just words, but these things are real. Okay. And I've been in the business for 5 years, getting to 5 years now. And I have seen the growth. I have seen the evolving, P1 evolving, and it just keeps getting better. And if you're here today, I want to congratulate you for even coming on this call. If you're a PBO, congratulations. If you're yet to be a PBO, congratulations in advance, because this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I had a briefing with my managers on Friday last week, and I told them that the P1 opportunity is a gold mine. But the challenge is that some people haven't yet come to terms with the fact that this is a gold mine. It's like an open check. It's an opportunity that anybody from any walk of life, from any endeavor, from any profession, any age, male or female, whoever you are, in whatever part of the world you are, you can leverage on this opportunity and become whatever you want to become. And that is the truth. That is a fact. You can leverage on the opportunity. You can use it. If financial empowerment, financial freedom is your goal, this is an opportunity for you to actually achieve that goal. If you want independence, this is it for you. You want your children to you want to take them out from public schools and put them in private schools. This is the opportunity. You've been living in flats, face me, I face you. You want to move into a duplex. This is an opportunity. This is it, and it's an amazing opportunity. It's a giving system. It's a system that appreciates its people, both clients and PBOs. It's a system that recognizes excellence. It's a system that celebrates people when they put in their efforts. It encourages smart work. It encourages people that have come to terms with their purpose, who have that drive, who really want to make a mark. It appreciates and it rewards them a lot. And if you're on this call today and you're listening to us, you can tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to be one of those people that would use this opportunity to move from point A, where I am right now, to point B. Okay? So that's my preamble. So if you're not on yet, if you have not signed up, sign up. If you're not recruiting people, start recruiting people. If you have stopped recruiting people, start again to recruit people. There's something the president always says. She says to invest in real estate is a good investment. Investing in real estate is a good investment. But when you invest in people, it's much, much better than just investing in real estate. And what better way can you invest in people than when you bring them into an opportunity like this and help them to grow within the system? When you do that, you're investing in people. And guess what? If you understand investments very well, I understand a bit of it. I know that every investment has dividends. Every investment has dividends. So when you invest in people, you will definitely be rewarded. Okay? So let's keep up the good work and keep the flag flying. All right, today we're going to be talking about land documents and their legal implications in real estate practice. Now, I'm just going to run through this in the next 20 minutes, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask me questions based on what we're going to be learning today. And but what I'm going to be covering are just like the basics. I'm not going to bore you with so many legal, whatever, too many technicalities. I will just explain the basic information you require to make a success out of your P1 business. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be explaining to you today. No need to go into arguments or intricacies and all of that. So you're welcome. Next slide, please. So these are my mentors, a couple of my real estate parents. They are none other than Dr. Austin Ozioma Ongumere and Dr. Mrs. Jane Obioma Ongumere. These are the founding members, pioneers, visionaries for this great movement, this great phenomenon called the P1 phenomenon. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is the outline for today. So we're going to be talking about a brief introduction. I'm going to do a very short outline for you. No, Simon, go back a bit. I think you're going too fast. Go back. Go back a bit to outline. Perfect. Yes, fine. Perfect. So after that, we'll talk about the fundamental principles that govern real estate. Then we'll go into the various status a land can have. I'll tell you the difference between status and title. Then we'll discuss the important documents in real estate property transactions. We're going to talk about just the important ones that you need to know. Then we're going to talk about title to land and their legal significance, and then you'll ask me questions. We'll do the Q&A. Next slide, please. So the introduction. So the fundamental principle in real estate, as a realtor, as a PDO, as a P1 business owner, I need you to understand that you cannot own land. Okay, what you can have is a right to interest in land. And this right is captured in Section 1 of the Land Use Act. So when you hear people say, I'm the owner of the land, I'm the landowner, legally speaking, according to this law, the Land Use Act, we can't have ownership of land, especially in urban areas, right? What you can have is just the right to occupy or right or interest in the land. This is what the Section 1 of the Land Use Act expressly provides for, okay? That means that, and then somebody may ask, okay, so if you cannot own land, who can own the land? So by virtue of that Section 1 of the Land Use Act, it further explains that since all you can have is interest to the land or the right to occupy the land.
Recording in progress.
Excuse me. Or the right to, exercise you exercise some kind of dominance over the piece of land, okay? If that is not so, then what exactly, or who owns the land, okay? So in explaining that, for rural lands in rural areas is strictly owned by the state. So let's say Lagos State. Sorry, just 1 minute, let me put this. So let's just say Lagos State, okay? So Lagos State owns, we won't actually say it owns the land, but it holds the land in trust for the people. It's like, the best way to explain it so you can understand, because I want to really break it down very well. So there's no too much legal jargon in it, is, how a parent would hold money for the child when a visitor comes to the house and gives the child money. Okay, I give you 500 naira. Then the parent will say, okay, let me hold that 500 naira. When you grow up, I will give you back. Something like that. So the state holds land in trust for the people. Okay, and what the people have, what the people have is not ownership of the land, but they have a right or interest in the land. That is exactly what Section 1 of the Land Use Act, which is still being used, is an old law. There's some things that are outdated, but we're still using it in Nigeria. That's what that section says. Now, caveat, and I'm talking about principles, basic principles in real estate. So understand that you can't own land. You can only have rights or proprietary interest in land. Caveat emptor, I'm sure you have seen this thing several times in several places. It actually means buyers beware. Okay, when you see maybe on a fence or something, somebody writes caveat emptor, it means buyers beware. And what that means is that the burden is on whoever is buying, do you understand, to do his or her own due diligence. The burden is not on the person selling. So it is the person that is buying that should be beware, and not the seller. So that's exactly what this principle is. A Latin word, but it's something that cuts across most real estate. One of the rules in real estate, right? That it is the buyer that should do his or her own due diligence and not the seller. The burden is on the buyer. So if you have a client who is insisting on this, that it is on him to do his own due diligence, you will tell him the status of the land or the title the land has. Of course, P1 is not going to peddle property that is defective knowingly, right? So P1 also has that responsibility to make sure that whatever is putting out in the public there is not something that is encumbered or something that has government interference on it or something that will lead to nothing but litigation, okay? But P1 has its own responsibility to itself to ensure that the estate, the property, the land that we're selling has the right documentation, has the right status or title, whatever it is, but it is the buyer that needs to go further. So if anything happens, the onus is on the buyer. Everything will still fall on the buyer, but why didn't you check? Why didn't you do this? So, and this is just a principle, a general principle, do you understand, in real estate transactions, that the buyer is the one to beware and not the seller. The next is another Latin maxim. It's quid plantator, solo sed it. It's a Latin maxim. It just means that whatever is affixed to the soil belongs to the soil. So anything, if somebody says, I have right over this piece of land, anything on the land, be it property, be it building, be it farm produce, be it the pineapple orchard, whatever is on the land belongs to the person that is exercising dominance on that piece of land, okay, by law, by rights. So whatever is affixed to the soil. So if you buy land right now, let's say in Flourish City, okay, if eventually there is a property or something or a vegetation or something, a farm there or something, it belongs to you. That is the general notion. It's a general principle, okay? And whatever is affixed to the soil by way of vegetation, plantation, building, structure, belongs to whoever is exercising right or dominance over that piece of land, okay? So that means that he owns everything. Now, there's this argument that, okay, what about if somebody now discovers oil in that land? Does it belong to the land? I mean, sorry, does it belong to the person that has the proprietary rights over the land? Now, remember that if it's a rural area, and even if it's an urban area, okay, and even if it's a rural area, as long as you discover something like natural resources, it is still the government that will administer it on behalf of people. Okay, so even though, yes, this Latin maxim or this principle exists, but it has its own limitations, okay? All right, so next slide, please. So there are various status a land can have. Now, land can either be free from all forms of government acquisition. It can be acquired but not committed. It can also be committed, acquired, and committed. Now, when a search is conducted, usually some people will tell you, oh, before I buy that land, like this evening, I was talking with somebody and was trying to ask questions on a particular property. So usually there's a search most clients, not all, some of them want to conduct. And usually when the search is conducted, three things can come back as the result. It's either that, oh, it's free from any form of government acquisition. It could be that, oh, that land is acquired, but it's not committed. Or it could be that that land is committed. That means it is acquired and committed. If it is free from all government acquisition, is good. That means pass mark. If it is acquired but not committed, it can pass, because it means that whatever is remaining to be done to perfect the status of the land is something that can be done to ratify and to bring the land back to, do you understand, the status of being free from all forms of government acquisition. And I'll explain that in a short while now. But if the result comes back and it says it's committed, then that is a no-go area. You are not supposed to deal with that business. You're not supposed to go and transact. You're not supposed to encourage your client to move any further because that property is committed. Okay, it's committed. So these are the three things that can come out in a land search. Next slide. So the important documents you need in your transactions, when you're doing transactions in P1, in your P1 business. Now, this is for P1 business because doing transactions as a lawyer or dealing with Omonile is a totally different ballgame. Okay, but for the purpose of PBOs, this is just what you need to understand. That's why I said you don't need to know everything. You just need to know what pertains to your work, your business as a PBO within the P1 system. Okay, so the important documents you need to know is the application form and the frequently asked questions. So if a client indicates that he's interested in a particular property, the next thing you're going to do as a PBO is to give him the application form. We also call it the subscription form. And in the subscription form, you have frequently asked questions. And at the base of the subscription form, there's a column for your prospective client to sign and date. Do you understand? And put down his name, showing that he or she has read all the explanations, seen all the answers to the questions most frequently asked by clients, and he or she is ready to go into that business transaction with you. Okay, so that's the first thing you must do. Now, I always encourage people that the first thing is not just to go and make payments, because sometimes some people I've seen situations where people have made payments and there was no subscription form, and 2-3 months down the line, they're asking for a refund. Okay, all of those things. So ensure that your clients, whoever you're dealing with, you give the person is interested in the property. The first thing is the subscription form that contains the frequently asked questions, where everything about the land, location, how it is sold, the installment payment plan, the amount, everything is there. Okay, make sure the person reads it, understands it, signs it, and dates it. The next thing will be the proof of payment or purchase receipts. So the next thing will be the payment that the client has made. So the client will need to send to you the proof that I have paid for XYZ land. And the next thing is the survey plan. Now, the survey plan, deed of assignment, and the CTC of the estate title are the things that will come later. Do you understand? After P1 has processed the payment, giving the client the purchase receipt, giving the client the contract of sale, okay, and then the deed of assignment will then later be issued with a survey plan inside the deed of assignment. And of course, on request, the person can be given a CTC copy of the estate title. Okay, so it's not compulsory that P1 will, but if you request for it, it can be given you. Now, the survey and deed is issued after payment is made for what we call the documentation, okay, or the land documentation. The payment that is made for the piece of land is different from the documentation itself, okay? And documentation can be done at the same time the person is paying for the land, or it can be done at a different time. But it must be done before the client is given his or her survey, the deed of assignment, that contains the survey, and on request, a CTC copy of the estate title. Okay, next slide. So titles to land and their legal significance. So, sorry, by now I think I should have changed this heading. It should not just be titles, because some of them are not titles, some of them are status. So I said here the survey plan, the excision, gazette, COO, deed of assignment, registered conveyance. Now, 1, 2, 3, the first 3 are not titles, they are just status. But the last 2 are proper title. Okay, so sorry for that subtopic. This heading should be status and title of land and their legal significance. Now, a survey plan is simply what it is. A survey plan is a drawing of the land, a drawing of the survey, like a broad, visual picture of the plot of land of the estate. Okay, and it's usually prepared by a surveyor, and it's a well-prepared survey plan has certain things that must be in it. I have handled some, that was in the past. I've handled some transactions where people brought survey plan that are fake. Even looking at it, do you understand? But some people don't even know what a real survey plan looks like. So just because it's a piece of paper and somebody's saying a survey does not mean it's a correct thing. So there are certain things a survey plan must have for it to be qualified to be called a valid survey plan. And in the next slide, I'm going to show it to you. The next one is excision. Now, so you know there's some properties they'll tell you, oh, what does it have? What title does it have? Survey is not a title, it's status. It just shows you, status means how is the land? I told you that when people go to do land search, there are three things that can come out. It's either that the land is free, that means it's okay, or it can come out and say, oh, the land is acquired, but it's not committed, it's still okay. But it can come out and say that land is committed. That means it's a red flagged zone. You're not supposed to go have any transaction, maybe because government has mapped out that area for something in the future. Maybe government wants to use that place to build a hospital, a school, a museum. He wants to construct roads that is going to cut across that place or something, but it has to be something that will be of public interest, something that has to be in the benefit of the state, the public. Because remember that the states, and when we say the state, we're talking about the governor. That's why you hear things like governor's consent. So the governor is acting on behalf of, is acting as, do you understand, a trustee for the people. He's a number one custodian. He's a number one citizen in the states. Do you understand? So that's why it is his consent that is required in deeds and registered conveyances when the transaction is concluded, and they need to just append that on the deed, okay? So when you see property that they say, oh, what does it have? It's surveyed. That means that the land has been surveyed. And it has a survey plan. Okay? It has a survey plan. And like I said, a survey plan, there are certain things that have to qualify it to be a proper plan, a proper survey plan. If it doesn't have those things, it is not a proper survey plan. And therefore, you cannot rely on it to encourage your client to go ahead with the transaction. Excision is simply, the word excision means to cut out, okay? It comes from the word excise. So excision is not a title, it's a status. It shows the status of the land. It shows that, okay, this land is free from government acquisition, but it doesn't have a C of O. It doesn't have, it might not be gazetted yet, or it could be, okay? But it just shows that government is aware that this land belongs to, let's say, the Odomi community. But the Lagos State government has cut out that portion of land and ceded it to the Odomi people for them to do with it whatever they want to do. Use it for commercial purposes, like resell it to brands like P1 or something, just do with it whatever they want to do with it. Okay, so usually, and it's sometimes, usually, not sometimes, usually it's capital intensive. So most of these locals would require a more, what would I call it now? Some kind of funding, financing to be able to get, do you understand, their property excised so that they can deal with the general public, resell it to brands like P1 and things like that. So that's where P1 comes in. So what happens is that the community, and excision is not given to an individual, it's given to communities. You don't give excision to one man or one family, it's given to communities. So a community can ask that maybe in the, let's say in this Odomi area, this fraction of Odomi, there are about, let's say, 600 plots. And the owners, the family members, the key family members in that area can decide, okay, let's go and get these 60 or 600 acres or whatever let's make sure that it's excised so that we can resell it to companies that are interested. Okay, now they will have to apply to Lagos State government. Now, in applying, most times Lagos State government may not grant them the whole 600 acres or 6,000 acres, whatever it is. Most times government can grant them, okay, we'll give you 4,000 or we'll give you 3,000 or something. And when government grants them that, they measure out the area. Okay, they measure out the area from this place to this place, from that place to that place. So that process is what is called excision. The process of getting to applying to government and government actually ceding that portion of land to the locals, to the natives, for them to do whatever they want to do, because government understands that these people also have a right to the land of to do business with land, because it's the land of their birth. They understand that bit. So there's that flexibility, so they can give it to that community. Now, when that excision is documented, or when some people have you ever seen somebody tell you that what's the title of the land? They say it's court judgment. Either an excision or even a survey plan or even a court judgment, when any of these things are put in a public record book, that's when you hear things like, oh, it's gazetted. So what is a gazette? A gazette is simply an official document that contains public pronouncements, public notices, public information, something that the public should know. So when people go through excision exercise, the next phase will be to gazette it, like to put it in a public document, so people know that, for instance, excuse me, for instance, this Odeomi people have XYZ acre, measuring from these square meters to that square meters, and all of those things are delimited, and they list out the family names that are covered under that excision. So when that is documented properly in a public document, that's when we say it is gazetted. So you hear people say it has a gazette. And when it's a public information like that, it means that the whole world knows. So an innocent buyer coming to buy that property, and after buying the property, now coming back to say, oh, I didn't know that this property had problem, that is not a valid argument, because already there's a publication, and the general public is aware that that land has been excised and gazetted. So you can't come with that argument. So once it's gazetted, it means that yes, the government is aware and everybody's aware, and it's now public information. And of course, the COO, we all know about the COO. COO is not status, it's a proper title, it's a proper land title. And according to the Land Use Act, it's for 99 years. Now, at the end of 99 years, there's been this argument whether will it be revoked, will people reapply or something, will somebody have to, re-register whatever the COO for it to start running again. There's been that argument for a long time. Some people are of the view that you would just reapply. Others are on the view that, it just stops running at the 99 years. So there's been that discrepancy for the longest time ever. Then, of course, the last and not the least here is the deed of assignment or the registered conveyance. Now, deed of assignment and registered conveyance are the same thing. Some states use deed of assignment, like Lagos State uses deed of assignment. If you go to areas like, I think, Oyo, Ondo, they use registered survey. If you go to the east, some of them use power of attorney. But it's the same thing, just that the names are different, but it's the same thing. Now, the governor's consent that you're seeing here is just a stamp, like it's the governor's signature and stamp at the back of the deed or the power of attorney or the registered conveyance. Okay, so that's what the governor's consent is. Governor's consent on a deed or on a conveyance or on a power of attorney strictly says that the governor who is holding the property in trust for the people has consented to this land transaction. That's why it's a very, very powerful title to hold. Excuse me, it's a very, very powerful title for someone to hold, because the governor is aware and has consented to that land transaction. Okay, so next slide. Excuse me.
Hello, Mark. Can I proceed?
Yes, I said next slide, please.
Okay, sorry.
So I've already explained all these things. So let me just run through this one. So this is a typical example. No, go back a bit. This is a typical example of what a survey looks like. Okay. This is, like I said, I know it might not be so clear, but this is what it looks like. The surveys, like I said, there's some things you must have. And I wrote down here about 6 points. Name of the owner of the land surveyed, the address or description of the land surveyed, the size of the land surveyed, the drawn out portion of the land surveyed and mapped out survey plan document, the beacon numbers, the surveyor who drew up the plan, the dates, the address, and all of that of when it was drawn up. So all of these things must be on the body of the survey. Okay, it must be on the body of the survey. And I've talked about excision. I told you about excision. This is Gazette. Now, Gazette, this is how an official Gazette looks like. It's just like a register, like a document, a book, an official record book, where all special information are spelled out, detailed, and recorded. Gazette will show the communities or villages granted excision and number of acres or hectares the government has given them. It is within those excised areas or hectares that the family is entitled to sell its land to the public and outside those, and nothing more. Okay, so this is how the face, like Lagos State of Nigeria official gazette. This gazette contains all kinds of publications, all kinds of public notices, including days of public holiday and all of that. Okay, so that's just what a simple gazette is. Next slide, please. This is the C of O. This is what it looks like. As I stated earlier, all lands in the state belongs to the people, but it is held in trust for the people by the governor. And this provision is enshrined in Section 1 of the Land Use Act. C of O is issued by the government, issued by the governor of the government. It officially leases the land for an applicable number of years, 99 years for residential lands or lands within government schemes. C of O recognizes your right to the land. Now, what happens after 99 years is still a debate. My view is that government must renew. Okay, so it's officially issued by the government. And when they say governor's consent, it doesn't mean that it's a state governor that signs it. It's actually the Attorney General, because the Attorney General acts on behalf of the executive governor of the state. Okay, next slide. So this is a deed of assignment. Many of us have seen it with your clients. This is what it looks like, the front. Okay, there's a date between the parties, the assignor and the assignee, and then a brief description of the title, and then prepared by the lawyer who prepared it. So deed of assignment is just a simple agreement between the seller of the property and the buyer of the property, showing that the seller has transferred all his rights, his title, ownership of the land to the seller that has just bought it. Now, after the deed of assignment has been exchanged, it can now be recorded in the land's registry to show legal proof. Do you understand that such a transaction happened? Such recorded deed of assignment come in form of governor's consent or registered survey. So once it is recorded like that, once it is submitted in land's registry and it is stamped, that's when it's called governor's consent. The deed of assignment has the governor's consent on it. Either deed of assignment or registered conveyance or power of attorney, depending on what states in Nigeria, but they're all the same thing. Now let me show you, next slide, let me show you what the back of the deed of assignment is. So this is what the back of the deed of assignment is. This is a governor's consent. This is like a deed of assignment. This is like a registered survey. So it's just this stamp now. I don't know, it's a bit faint. Look at the two parties. The assignor and the assignee have signed, the witnesses, and then if you can see here, you see Attorney General, Commissioner for Justice. This is the stamp and the signature and the date. The same thing for the registered conveyance. Okay, so once this happens, it means that that's a deed of assignment that has governor's consent on it, and it's a very powerful title. Okay, because now this is simply showing that the governor is aware of this transaction. So any third party that is coming to claim anything adverse. Do you understand? It's going to have a very tall, long journey to go because, I mean, property that the governor has consented to. And I've seen situations where you can have two conflicting governors' consent. And usually when that happens, because some of those kind of things can happen, when it happens, the first in time will take precedent over the latter one. Okay. All right, next slide. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. So any questions? Now, these are just the simple things you need to know. Know your titles, know the status, know what their legal significance is, what they mean. You can explain to your clients, you can educate them, tell them, oh, this is what this means. Some people, I hear some people say things like, oh, I want to buy a land that has C of O. And when you ask them, okay, what's your budget? They tell you 1 million. You can't get a land that is C of O for 1 million, except the person is not telling you the truth. Okay, so with this bits and bytes of information, you have what you can say to your clients. You can expatiate on it. You can explain it to them, help them to understand it, and then advise them properly. Okay, on the next step. All right, so we're going to stop here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. That was good. Thank you so much, Ma. I learned a lot from today's session. Thank you so